Signature Fire Podcast. I am your host, Miss Brittany Renee, and today we have Miss Faith Powell, our first student athlete brand ambassador, here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I'm so happy to have you, and I'm just so happy that you took the call when, we had put, the call out for student athletes, which is huge, and it even is more dear to my heart that you are a female.
Oh.
So I am happy to have you here, and thank you so much for coming. I would first like you to just introduce yourself and tell me who you are, where you're from.
Like I said, my name is Faith Powell, and I am originally from New Mexico. I ended up coming to Phoenix to attend Grand Canyon University. I am a track and field athlete there, and I am a high jumper. I am actually in my final semester. And so I'll be graduating with my bachelor's in performance and sports psychology.
Awesome.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
super exciting.
Yeah.
And it's been an interesting 4 years to say the least with COVID, and I actually experienced an injury my freshman year.
Okay, so yeah, very interesting. We'll get all into that for sure. So you're at Grand Canyon University.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been there your whole 4 years, or?
Yeah, so I got signed for a full ride scholarship there.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. My freshman year, I graduated in 2019, and then I went into my freshman year. And so I kind of got a little glimpse of everything, and then COVID hit. So it was definitely really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here on the Signature Fire Podcast, we talk about your journey, entrepreneurship, your purpose, and pretty much everything in between. So today's topic is navigating mental health as a student athlete and model, because you are also a model. But shout out to track, because I ran track. My sisters ran track. Yeah, so it's even better that you ran track. We absolutely have something in common. And then I know you touched on COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And so let's kind of get into that. How did you navigate going to college and then it abruptly just kind of being out of hope?
So kind of like I said, I ended up experiencing an injury. I dealt with tendonitis all through high school, which is it has to do with your patellar tendon in your knee. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of more like a chronic pain issue. And so when I translated or went from high school to college, I was initially supposed to do all three jumps. So I was a high jumper, triple jumper, and long jumper. Okay. And then I ended up tearing my patellar tendon. I had a 80% tear. Wow. And this was my first semester at GCU. Okay. And so I tore my tendon. I kind of was lost. I didn't really know what exactly to do next, because I was a athlete who was signed I was doing really well coming out of high school, and I was expected to do well. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of just, everything got put to a halt. And so I found out that I need to get surgery, and then as that kind of escalated, we were going into that second semester, which was our outdoor season. Okay. And so we ended up getting sent back home. My surgery was put on hold, and I ended up coming back in the middle of COVID and staying on campus, which I was alone on campus. Wow. So I had to go back, get my surgery, and at that time they didn't allow anyone to come in with you. And so I had to go in there by myself. First surgery I've ever had. Oh my goodness. It was definitely a little traumatizing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But so then I got that going and came back, and I was on campus in the middle of COVID. So kind of just rehabbed my knee, and the experience was definitely interesting because we were having testing constantly. Mm-hmm. They test us 3 times a week. Yeah, it was definitely a little intense. We had to wear masks everywhere. I was on crutches, so that was a little intense. We kind of just had to navigate a world with COVID. And it was a little difficult.
So I picked up on your degree in psychology.
Yeah.
How big is mental health for you? Were you aware of mental health prior to coming into college, and then experiencing COVID, and then an injury?
Yeah. So mental health has always been a very big or prominent part of my life. My mother actually suffers from mental illness, and she also suffers from drug addiction.
Okay.
And so I kind of grew up in an environment where I was seeing this like struggle with mental health. And so I think that moving forward, going into college, I kind of dealt with this journey of like trying to navigate my own mental health, growing up in like a broken home and stuff. So I think the one thing that probably pulled it out the most for me was my injury, because track kind of provided like this like safe blanket or space for me to kind of grow. My injury taught me that things weren't always going to be good in terms of like track and stuff like that. Wasn't always going to be like a positive thing. And so moving forward, I was able to kind of see the reality of like what it meant to be an athlete at that level, and how if my sport was actually something that I had a healthy relationship with. I think it was important for me to kind of go through that experience, because I was able to kind of see that being a student athlete is not all that it's put out to be sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for me, in high school, I was diagnosed with a heart murmur my junior year. And so like passed out on the track, and and the doctor took me off and said, we got to figure out what's going on. So I had to like wear this heart murmur, and like I'm in class and it's like going off and everybody's like looking. It's just a whole big thing. And so I ended up getting cleared my freshman year in college. But because I was out like my whole senior year, I didn't get any scholarship offers. So I had to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to pivot? So I went to junior college. And then it was in my freshman year of junior college that the doctor said, okay, you're good, you're clear. So I went back out and ran track for junior college. But it was at that pivotal moment for myself, it was kind of like when you just kind of have sports to rely on, that's kind of like your identity, right? And then it instantly gets snatched from you. It's like, okay, what next? What do I do from here? You know, so I can totally relate with you, you know, like, and then COVID, you don't even have anyone to help you, so I know that could have been like super straining, I guess, but it also taught you resilience, right? Just kind of seeing it, like you said, it's not all what it's cracked up to be, because sometimes as an athlete, it's almost like you're looked at as if it's like a job.
For sure.
You know, that's what the scholarship pretty much is saying, okay, we're paying you to be here, so you have to perform, and sometimes you know, that comes with them shooting you up with cortisone or all those different things that is just kind of like, okay, what will life be like for me after this is done, and how is my health going to be affected? So I absolutely understand, you know, your struggle in that area. Let's talk about how you transitioned. So after kind of COVID, you know, just going back to school and getting kind of back into the groove of things.
It was definitely kind of a struggle. COVID mixed with my injury, I kind of went through a depressive kind of phase, because my identity was kind of just like we talked about, torn apart. I was kind of being pulled in a bunch of different directions, and being able to just have a normal college experience was definitely like not the ideal thing that was going to happen at first. Like, we had our season ended up starting off where we had masks, we weren't really able to travel in certain places, we had maybe like a couple of meets here and there, but a lot of it consisted of us still being at GCU and kind of just slowly starting to branch out. We had classes that were kind of like this blended model. So we had in person and online, and then slowly starting to like let the athletes back into like our training facilities. We had testing. Again, testing was like super prominent at that time. And so we were really strict with like, you have to wear a mask in the weight room. You have to test 2 or 3 times a week. They kind of had like a thing where if you were around someone who had COVID, they would put us in quarantine, and we wouldn't be able to leave our dorms. So it was definitely a little rough transition, but I think before we knew it, we were kind of starting to get back to normal. But my sophomore year was probably the most blended model that we had, and then last year would probably be my first normal year. We were able to have like our preseason, we trained, we got ready for indoor, which is like our January through March type situation, and then we have a break and then we go into outdoor season. And our training starts in September.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we train from September all the way until like May or June.
Wow.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot, but it was kind of rough.
Right. So it's kind of like you really maybe had 2 good years of college because COVID just kind of took those first 2 away then. I know that you model. And so how do you juggle being a model, a student athlete? How do you find time to do all these things?
Honestly, the biggest thing for me is time management. It's definitely been a little bit of a roller coaster because it's just like I have a million things going on already. Kind of before the modeling, I was going to class, I had study hours, traveling, treatment, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
And obviously with like school, I was taking about like 4 classes or something. One of the things that they emphasize as an athlete, like I said, is time management and also just making sure that you're not spreading yourself too thin. And that was kind of one thing that I kind of at first struggled with, just because I wanted to do so many things, but being a student athlete has its restrictions.
Absolutely.
And so there was only so much that I could do. I think the main reason that I started modeling was just because I wanted to find identity outside of sport. And so I kind of wanted to do that as something that allowed me to get away from track for a little bit and take some time to do things here and there, but trying not to like overexert myself, because at the end of the semester I was definitely feeling it. I was like, I have way too much going on.
Right.
I got to take a step back, and so kind of just doing things here and there when I could and going from there. So
if you don't mind, I want to kind of tap into the mental health aspect as growing up with a mom who suffers from mental illness. How did that affect you, your childhood, and being able to still push forward? Because being a student athlete, a lot of people have their own struggles. Sports can be an escape from that. So, how was that for you?
Growing up with that kind of broken home aspect, it was definitely hard. I didn't find track until I was in the 6th grade.
Okay.
So it kind of just started from there. I was able to kind of just create this community over the years of coaches and teammates and friends and a lot of people within the school system that were able to be like that backbone and support system for me. It was definitely difficult watching my mother go through that. But I ended up moving out when I was 16.
Okay.
I kind of over the years, I just focused on my sports and my school. And the one thing that I would always tell myself is that I have to do good in sports and school in order to make a life for myself and get out of here. I thought it was really important to just kind of focus on that throughout my younger years. I was actually pretty successful in track in high school, and I think that was the thing that just kind of kept me going, was knowing that if I kept doing this, that I would be able to go to college and get a degree. And thank God for like my coaches, because like they really helped me navigate through that. And so when I ended up moving out, my coach set up kind of like a situation for me where I was actually living with a teammate of mine.
Okay.
And that was probably 16 until I graduated or so a couple years.
Okay.
Basically from there, he kind of just helped me. He knew that I was in a situation that I was struggling at home.
Yeah.
And a lot of like the coaches and the people in the community saw that, but they saw that I was still coming to practice, to school, and just showing up and putting that message out there that like regardless of like your situation, you're going to be able to keep moving forward. And that was kind of like the mindset that I had to have growing up in order to get out of that situation.
Absolutely.
So I was definitely like really grateful for my coach, just because, like I said, he got me out. We had a lot of special moments together. I was going to national meets, I was getting scouted by colleges, and it got to the point where like towards the end of that, we were kind of going back and forth on like, well, which school are you going to go to, and you've made it this far, like you should be proud of yourself. I think like the biggest thing for me was like I established a name for myself in New Mexico, and I was one of like the best female athletes in New Mexico's history.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty awesome to be able to leave that there and have that like as like my legacy as like an athlete.
Absolutely.
So,
well, your signature
awesome.
is definitely required.
Yes.
And you absolutely are walking in your purpose and just sharing your story and being so transparent. I really appreciate that, and I just want to say thank you because a lot of people need to hear, more just to be encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
So many people are dealing with things, so many things are going on in different households, right?
Yeah.
And so you just sharing that, like, I got out and thankfully there were people there to support you and to help you. And that's just so important because I feel like sometimes we kind of are blindsided to things that are happening, right? And not really knowing what other people are dealing with, and then we kind of start to judge or think like, oh, they got it all together, and like you said, you made history in your state. That's huge, but no one or some may not know your story. So to just keep going and to have that tenacity and resilience and just being transparent, like you're going to help so many people with your story. So I just want you to know, just keep sharing that because people need it. Definitely. And COVID, it really just did something to everybody. So that's just a whole nother story, but to have that upbringing, move out at 16, be able to get a scholarship, go to college, and then injured, like that's a lot. It's a whole lot, especially when you have the struggles back home, and it's like, okay, I can't just pick up the phone, hey mom, this is going on, because she's dealing with her own struggles. So how do you even bounce back from that? So kudos to you, girlfriend. What made you pick GCU?
Quite honestly, I was going back and forth. I actually committed verbally to a school in Virginia.
Okay.
But something just didn't feel right. I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to go here. And then my coach here, he was like, listen, we're going to give you this amount of money and you're going to be taken care of, and like you're not going to have to stress.
Wow.
And that was just one thing that I took into consideration, was I can leave college without any debt.
Yes.
And that's super huge, especially being in the situation that I was in, to be able to do that for myself. I also have a brother who lives 2 hours away, and he's in Tucson, and my grandparents are back home. I kind of thought about it and I was like, well, I'd be close to family, and if I needed to go back and kind of be with my grandparents, or like going home was a little more practical. And so I was like, well, they're going to pay me to go to college, so might as well go.
So that's awesome. What are your plans after college?
I definitely want to spend some time pursuing modeling, kind of see where that goes. With my degree, like I said, I'm a performance and sports psychology major. Ideally, I would like to be a sports rehabilitation therapist and work with injured athletes, just because of the experience that I had. I had a mental performance coach, and he really helped me kind of build this healthy relationship with track. I just loved what he did, whether that's starting with coaching or just working with other athletes. Like, I want to give back. So that's kind of where we're starting.
Okay, well that's awesome. I have a friend that actually, I don't know if that's her degree, but I know she does like rehabilitation and different things like that. I believe she's in Texas. So I would like to connect you with her, and maybe you can talk to her, and if there's internships or something that may be available, I absolutely want to connect you with her. And then my baby sister, she's a part of it's like the National Track Association or something like that. So she was over it in California, so she would do like all the big meets that they would have out there. She would kind of help put those on, and so I know that she has a couple of people that if you are interested in coaching and stuff, so I'll make sure that I connect you with the both of them in any way that we can help.
Thank you so much.
That's what we are here for. Last question: what advice would you give a young girl that is a senior in high school, that may be struggling, not trying to figure out if she should even go to college, should she pursue, being an athlete? What is some advice that you would give someone?
I would say that the transition from high school to college is definitely one that it's pretty difficult and not talked about enough. If you're going to pursue being a student athlete at the next level, it should be something that you're really passionate about, and it should be something that you have a healthy relationship with. And to take that into consideration, just because the demand can get a little overwhelming sometimes, but don't be intimidated by that.
That's great advice, though. One thing that I just picked up from you, and then I know with your degree, having a healthy relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Because some people often get in sports and it's not healthy. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like you kind of get lost in the shuffle of things, mm-hmm. and then it becomes a job. No, and that sure. I even experienced that in like high school. Like, I don't want to do this no more. And then I got sick, and then it was like, wait, my identity, this is all I know, you know. So having a healthy relationship is very important, you know, being an athlete. And I think that we don't talk enough about that. So
not at all.
I think that that's amazing. Well, on the Signature Required podcast, we cannot let you leave without asking our number one question. Mm-hmm. What is your purpose? Have you found that, or, you know, do you think about that?
I'd say the main thing for me is just kind of correlates with what you guys are saying, is like wearing your name proud, yes. and also just sharing your story. I think my purpose was just being able to share my story, be transparent, and also tell others that you're not your circumstances, and you can do anything that you set your mind to, and regardless of how hard it gets, just keep going. And I just kind of live by that, and no matter what it is, saying things to people day by day, saying a kind word or being there for them if they need like a shoulder to cry on or to talk to. Like, you never know how much that's going to help somebody.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. How can people connect with you? How can they find you? Are you just on social media, Instagram, or do you have any other ways that they can connect with you?
So I have a couple of different platforms. Instagram's probably my main thing, but they can find me on Instagram at fai.t and then followed by 5 H's. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions about literally anything. My DMs are always open. My YouTube is Faith Elizabeth, and then my TikTok is Faith Powell 89.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's talk about your YouTube channel. What do you do on your YouTube channel?
So I actually started that my freshman year of college.
Okay.
And I kind of just used it as a little vlog channel, like lifestyle, track. I did a lot of vlogs and kind of just documenting like what it's like to be a Division I athlete.
Wow.
I definitely wanted to dive into it a little bit more, but like I said, being a student athlete is super demanding already.
Absolutely.
So I kind of just had to like take a break, and I used it as something that I would use like for fun.
Okay.
But I definitely, it's like a work in progress. I wanted to talk more openly about like my story, mm-hmm. And kind of just share more of that on that platform. Mm-hmm. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, you are always welcome here on the Signature Required podcast. We have our little baby studio. If you ever want to come shoot, whatever, it's totally on us. You know, we love that you are our first student athlete brand ambassador for Signature Required, and I am just so thankful that you took the time to come and talk to us and share your story. Good luck to you and all the things that you have going on. I know you will do amazing. Let us know when you have track meets. Very supportive there. Sure. We'll have a whole tribe out there. So I'm excited to just, you know, watch you continue to blossom. And if there's any way that I can be of service or any help to you, please, please, please let me know.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, that will wrap up the Signature Required podcast. I am your host, Miss Brittany Renee. Get your merch at signaturerequired.com. If you're looking for a personal development coach, hit me up at brittanyrenee.com, and we will see you back shortly on the Signature Required podcast. Peace.